Welcome to Mary Walter Radio, the live cast, or if you're listening or watching this later, it's podcast. How are you? Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday evening. It's good to be back. Let me just put my phone here. Let me turn my phone off for a hot second. And let me just tell our guest that we're on. He has not joined me yet. He was running late. So let me just let him know. A lot of you know who my guest is tonight, the wonderful RealJeffreyLord. So I'm very excited. I just adore this guy. He's so sweet. He's just so nice. And I'm so blessed to have met so many wonderful people. And then they agreed to come on the podcast. So it was great. And having gone to Israel, Jeffrey was on the trip with us. So I really got to make a connection with a lot of these people. And it's great that now that I get them to come on the podcast. So it's really good. It was a good trip, and I made a lot of really good friends with some really, really nice people. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to the channel on YouTube and on Rumble. Thank you so much. Great to see you guys. If you are over on Getter, you can leave comments, and I can read them. And as they come in, I can read them because they will not come up on the screen. Thank you so much for doing that. Please please tell your friends. You can also get the audio on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Spreaker. And last week, after our conversation with John Lott, right, about crime and about violence and about guns, and what happened on Wednesday was just a horrific day for all of us. Terrible. I just cried all day. First, I was really, really angry, and then I just cried all day. And it was just so odd that less than 24 hours ahead of what happened to Charlie, we had that discussion with John Lott. So I did not get the podcast edited and up because Wednesday, I don't know about you guys, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't function. I couldn't do anything. I was a disaster, as I'm sure you were as well. I mean, it really hit home whether you knew Charlie or not. I had the opportunity to meet him when I was in Washington, D.C. and interview him and things like that. But was I a friend? No, I was not a friend. I would never call myself a friend. Would he have recognized me had he seen me in Washington, D.C. at like an event? He probably would have put two and two together. I don't know, but I don't want to ever claim like, oh, I was friends with Charlie Kirk. It's like I knew him. But anyway, so it's just terrible. Let's get to some of your comments coming in here, and hopefully Jeffrey will be with us shortly because I have a great picture with Jeffrey. Porch View is here. Really glad to be with everyone. It has been an emotional couple of weeks. Let's see. Did Jeffrey get back to me yet? No. Sal, Mary, Street Preachers. Sad welcome to all. Mary, what a great guest you have tonight. If he shows up, this will be a good one. I hope so. RealJeffreyLord is so funny because he's so accomplished. And he's just done so much. He worked in the Reagan White House. He worked for the Reagan administration, and he's a prolific author and writer. And just so many people know his name and know who he is. But if you really get to sit down and know him, he's just, as a human being, just a really fun, nice guy. Alexis over on Rumble says, good evening. Looks like I'm the first to sign in. Alexis, yeah, I got to bring some friends over to Rumble. Appreciate you. Electronic Mozart. Yes, that's from Ron. Squeaky made me several of those electronic Mozart pieces that we could use here without YouTube digging me and taking the audio down. Watching Your Back is here. Rebecca is here. Suze is here. Suze Loves Jeffy is here. Bill is here. Rob Dog is also over on Rumble. Yeah, hey, Rob Dog, I'm here too. Good evening, Patriots. Us. We are Charlie Kirk, or US. We are Charlie Kirk. Yeah, we are, and we're going to talk about that. I think we need to have a discussion. I was on the air for Rob Carson on Friday. And I'm so glad I was not on the air Wednesday. I couldn't have done it. Like I said, I don't think I got out of bed Wednesday. I couldn't do it. I did nothing but cry Wednesday, Thursday, and I'm sure you did too. Like just stupid stuff. My husband, the IT department was in tears. And I don't think less of any man who cried. I think it's a total appropriate response. And he was he was in tears too, and just like the dumbest thing just made you just start to cry, right? Let's see. Rob Dog says, I have to go to bed in 45 minutes. That 2 a.m. start sucks. Oh, it does. When I was doing mornings and I did morning show, I did 2 morning shows. One of them, the last one that I did, I had to be in the studio. We're supposed to be in there at 4, but nobody else showed up to 4:30. So I started coming in at 4:30 as well, which gave me an extra half hour of sleep, which was great. But on Wednesdays, we had the local Fox affiliate in studio, and they would I had to do full hair and makeup. I couldn't like do this. This is not, this is like a little blush, a little cover up, some mascara and on camera. But that for TV, I had to do, you know, I had to make it gorgeous. I don't have a lot to work with, and the older I get, the less I get. So, so there's that. Yeah, the 2 a.m. sucks. I understand that. Lisa Renee, yay. Over on Rumble as well. Woo woo. Yeah. Lots of people from the Wendy Bell Radio Army. Love that. Dolly Madison is here. Ron, internet crashed. I'm here now. Ron, playing your music. Thank you so much for that. Rob Dog, 4 Rumbles. Come on, guys. Yeah, come on, man. Rebecca said, I would wager to say we all cried. Rob Dog, I cried like I lost a brother. So many people losing their jobs, they should stop crying. We are playing by their rules. That's a really good point. Yeah, let's talk about it. Hermit, you always look gorgeous, Mary. Thank you. But when I was doing the show on Friday for Rob Carson, I didn't know how it was going to go because I know Rob doesn't take a lot of calls. So, sometimes when you're filling in for someone who doesn't take a lot of calls, it's really hard to get calls because the audience isn't used to calling in, right? They're not used to doing that. So they don't do it. Maybe, or they do, and the host doesn't really take the calls. So they just figure I'm not going to take them. So they don't. But it was really interesting that it was just kind of like just talking it out. Like, and I think that that's good. And I think, I think the air changed. And maybe if you understand what I'm talking about, and maybe I'm voicing it in the proper way, but the air changed for me on Wednesday. Like it was almost like there was a palpable flip of a switch. Now, I don't know if that's going to last because Republicans are not known for following through on a lot of stuff. There was the whole Bud Light thing and that, there was that. But there were no riots. There was no destruction. Nobody boarded up their windows in anticipation of riots because we are not like them. We're not the same. We are not like the left. And the last 6 days, they have been desperate to try to make us like them, to say that you're just as violent as right. There's violence on both sides. Yeah, okay. But it's not to the same degree and it's not the same type of violence. And the reactions are not the same. So stop trying to say we are the same because we're not. We never had a summer of love. Oh, but you had the insurrection. If that was an insurrection, that was the lamest insurrection in the world. Not one person was armed. You would think that the right is like the most armed segment of society. And if that was all the right, which we know the FBI had people in the crowd, but if it was all the right, there was no Antifa in there wearing, American garb, that was the saddest insurrection going. They didn't even try if that was an insurrection. So they try to equivocate in order to make us like them, and we are not like them. And don't let them do it. It's BS. So that's kind of really pissing me off right now. And then there's the other part of the left. So the part that's trying to make us like them, and they're trying to equivocate it and trying to say, yeah, but, or it's okay, but, it's a terrible thing that happened, but no, there should be no but. It was a terrible thing, period. End of story. There should not be comma but after that. The other part of the left is the part that's just doubling and tripling down. They do not care. I give you Ilhan Omar, for example, and I've got something to play from her. Let's get to some of your comments here. Suze says, I still have moments of incredible sadness. I do. And, let me ask you guys, do you think that the momentum, like that pivotal, the air being sucked out of the room moment that we all felt, and the ensuing anger and And just like we've had enough. That part of it, do you think that that lasts? Americans aren't known for our attention span. We have the attention span of like golden retriever puppies. We're just not used to having known for having a big long attention span. Do we have the attention span to you know, hold on, what is it? Yikes, crazy day. Apologies. I don't know if Jeffrey's coming on. I don't know if Jeffrey knows if he's coming on. Sorry, he just texted me. Okay, so we don't have the attention span. I don't know, because we're not the type to go out and to riot and give you that reminder and we pound it into you the way the left does. That's not who we are. We held prayer vigils. We light candles, they light buildings on fire, right? It's that kind of thing. Oh, speak of the devil, and he shows up. Look who it is, Jeffrey Lord. Yay. How are you? Jeff, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me, Jeffrey?
Yes, I can.
Yay, there you are.
If only I were 8, I'd get all this stuff business better.
You're fine. You're fine. So we started without you. I hope you don't mind. So everybody, let me introduce you. For those of you who don't know Jeffrey Lord, I kind of gave him a brief introduction when he was not here, but he served as an associate political director under that man over his right shoulder there. That guy right there, Ronald Reagan.
That's
yeah.
right.
As I said, he is an author. He is a prolific writer. He is a commentator. He is also a very great dresser, by the way. You can catch his writings at thejeffreylord.com, and on X he's Real Jeffrey Lord, because apparently there's more than one, but he's the real Jeffrey Lord. So Jeffrey, we kind of got off. So what we do here is the viewers can leave comments and ask questions, and we talked about it started off with people commenting on the sadness of the day, because this is the first podcast since the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And let me ask you the question I just asked them. Do you think the right has the ability and the attention span to keep the Charlie Kirk narrative going and keep it alive to the ballot box, at least in November for New Jersey and Virginia, and into the midterms? Do you think they have it?
Yes, I do. And I'll tell you why. I've written about this. This will run tomorrow, I think, in the American Spectator, or later this week. When I was younger, that would mean November of 1963. I was in the 7th grade, and we got the news that President Kennedy had been assassinated in Dallas, Texas. Well, the next 4 days, quite vivid to me, even all these years later, the whole country stopped in its tracks. The whole world stopped in its tracks, and everything went about the ceremony surrounding him and his burial at Arlington Cemetery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What was not seen at the time was that for decades, JFK's influence was everywhere. You had all kinds of candidates in both parties, interestingly, running for office or being appointed to office and wanting to carry on what they saw as JFK's legacy, et cetera. And I would suggest to you, I mean, Charlie obviously didn't hold any office, but right. I would suggest to you that the response from this absolutely horrific act is going to be around for a long time, and that there are tens of thousands of young people all over this country and all over the world who were inspired by Charlie and are going to carry on his legacy. And I think that is a very, very big deal. And having seen it before, I can only imagine what this is going to do. The response at this moment has just been astounding.
So I hear what you're saying, but again, he was not an elected official, and I don't know if we see it, but I do agree with your take on the younger generation. I think he had such an effect on them. I saw so many videos from parents who didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, or didn't realize how important he was, and like their 17-year-old sons crying, and they're like, why are you crying? Right. He's like, you don't understand. Charlie was everything. I watched all his videos. I want to be like Charlie. So I do think maybe we'll see the true effect of it after I'm dead, when Gen Z, is in power, which part of me kind of is glad that I'm going to be dead by the time they're really in power, because I fear what they are. But at the same time, I do think that maybe seeing that come out gives me a little hope about what was being hidden behind the scenes there on Gen Z.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I mean, this is not new. I mean, as a history buff, I can tell you that when and a lot of times it's office holders, but when President Franklin Roosevelt died out of the blue at the beginning of what was his fourth term in office, that set the Democratic Party on a path to celebrate FDR and to try and get FDR style policies enacted as time moved on. And it was such a force in the Democratic Party that when John F. Kennedy came along, he had to face an old guard in the Democratic Party that kept saying, well, that's not what FDR would do, et cetera, to which the Kennedy response was, in essence, time has moved on, and, ask not what you can do for your country and all of this kind of thing. And it became a very different. So I think that this is a very human reaction. I think there was sort of the same reaction as I read from history when Theodore Roosevelt passed in 1918 after he had been president. So I expect this kind of thing to go on for quite a while with Charlie, until people literally can't remember who Charlie is, or don't know, or weren't around in the day. And we will see how that goes. Well, maybe we'll see if that's, I'm going to be 207 when that happens, perhaps.
You'll still look great and dress wonderfully, Jeffrey. One thing that was different, though, back then is the reaction. You didn't have this celebration of assassination culture that we have now. And I want to play something for you here. I would just want to play this. And this is, everybody knows this, we're having a little bit of trouble. So I want to play this for you. And listen to Ilhan Omar and what she says here.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men. I would say,
So what do you think? What do you think of that?
Well, I'll tell you. I'm noodling a writing project here called Skin Color Liberals, and basically, what I know as a student of history, the Democratic Party was literally founded by slave owners, and you go back and you read their platforms at that time period in the 1840s, 50s, early 60s, and it was all about slavery. Then slavery is ended over the objection of a lot of these Democrats in the day. And then it was segregation, skin color, in other words. And it wasn't until my lifetime that that became passe and was ended, and Dr. King and all of that kind of thing. Well, we still have what I call the son of segregation, which is identity politics. This is what the American left is all about. So I don't expect that part of it to disappear anytime soon, because I think this is their bread and butter. I think this is how they literally make their living, and how they succeed in politics is by playing on racial fears of this group or that group, etc. It's not good, but I have to say it's been there for decades and decades and decades, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Well, the parties flipped back in the 60s, right? Like they flipped, and whenever someone tells me, I'm like, really? Like, who switched sides? Who are the congressmen who switched sides? And then they can never name anything. Or it's the Dixiecrats. Thomas Sowell's book, White liberal, black redneck, or black liberal, white redneck. Do you have it there?
Somewhere here in my plethora of books over here, but yes.
Great book. It's a great book. It's a hard read. I was in bed for 6 weeks with a broken leg, and friends sent me that book, and I had to read it with a dictionary because he uses really long words, I think just because he can. And it's a very, very good book, and it's white liberal, black redneck, something like that. And it talks very much about almost like what you're discussing here, the history of the Democrat Party, the history of slavery, how it all goes back, and they never have really strayed far from their racist roots. They just have changed the words. It's pretty much all they've done.
It's all about race. It always has been right from the beginning, and it is right now at this moment. And the interesting thing is that Democrats believe that if you are of a certain color, they own you.
Right.
They loved Barack Obama, but they hate Clarence Thomas. Now, how is that? I remember I had been involved with Supreme Court nominations, and I'm not a lawyer, when I was in the Reagan era. And then in the Bush 41 era, I was over there at HUD with Jack Kemp, out of the Supreme Court nominating business. But I watched that when Justice Thurgood Marshall retired, the immediate call went up from the left and from Democrats that this was the quote unquote black seat on the Supreme Court. Well, President Bush 41 went along with that and nominated Clarence Thomas, and they went crazy. And why was that? It's because their view was that if you're black, you must be left. If you are a woman, if you are Hispanic, and then, of course, in our day and age, if you are gay, you're supposed to be left.
Democrat.
And,
yeah.
And the fact that that is not the case, and that you have people in all of those groups who are saying, well, like Clarence Thomas, I can think for myself, that drives them crazy. They really do believe they own people according to their race or sexual preference or gender, and not good. But it's been with us for quite a long time, and I don't see it going away anytime soon.
Well, let me ask you, and then I'm going to get to we have a lot of comments, so we'll get to those. Do you see? I see the base of the Democrat Party, those groups that you just talked about, starting to drift away, and I see their voting base contracting. They're always going to have the crazy white liberal women, right? Like the middle-aged white liberal women they're going to be there. That demographic may die off. But the black vote has definitely shrunk. Look at how many of them switched over for Trump. Same thing with Hispanics. And they hated Charlie Kirk, to get back to the start of this. They hated Charlie Kirk because he delivered so many under 30 votes for Donald Trump, and they can't have that. So, that's one of the reasons they hated Charlie Kirk and called him a Nazi and said he was a racist and a homophobe and misogynist and all these other lies, and got him killed, in my humble opinion. So do you agree that their base, though, is going to just keep contracting?
Yes, I do. And, one of the things, when you sort of pull back at the 30,000 foot level and look down on history and American politics and all of that, once upon a time, the Democratic Party was seen as the party of the working man, or literally, in Franklin Roosevelt's words, the party of the forgotten man. Well, it was very interesting, and this is why my old boss behind me here played such an interesting role in this, because he himself, he used to joke that once upon a time he had been a bleeding heart liberal, and he, and then he saw the light, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the deal is that the Reagan Democrats, as they were called, moved away from the Democratic Party because they saw it becoming a party of elites, the Harvard professors and all of this kind of thing, and the Wall Street types, et cetera. And they didn't like it, and they thought that they were being, in essence, disregarded and not given the time of day and looked down upon and all that kind of thing. So what you had was working class Democrats shifting to the Republican Party. And amazingly, not only did you have a movie actor getting that done, But as time went on, you had a billionaire from New York City doing this some version of the same thing and continuing it in that phrase, and they all love Donald Trump, and it drives the elites of the day crazy. But that is a fact.
Yeah, none of them thought it's so weird. Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson, none of them thought he was a racist until recently. It's so weird how they hung out with a racist all those years in New York City. It's
Exactly.
odd. All right, let's see who's here. Lisa Renee says over on Rumble, I feel you, Mary, as with the 3 days between the young lady on the train, Charlie, and 9/11, it's been a very hard past 5 days. We were
Amen.
talking about how I felt that when that day, Wednesday, was just such an emotional day for so many of us. I was so angry when I heard they shot him. I was all Jersey girl in my car, driving probably badly. And I was like, F this and F that. I'm like, I can't believe they shot him. You effing commies. And I was so mad. And we hadn't found out. So I just went home and I was so angry. And I was like, I can't believe you effing effers, and on and on and on and on. And then when I found out that, we got the news that he died, I mean, I just crumbled. And I think on that day, I feel, and I said this earlier just to bring you up to speed, I said, I feel like the air shifted, like there was a change, like there was a palpable shift in the matrix that day. But that's why I said, I don't know if that shift stays, or is the evil on the left so strong that they just pull it back? I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is why we have a real problem on our hands. We've got people on the left who believe that this kind of thing is okay, and literally, we have seen the videos of people dancing and jumping around, and they're all excited and all this kind of thing. I mean, that's horrible. To go back to President Kennedy again, I remember that in the news of the day, it was that. When his assassination was announced, a school somewhere in the American South that were not Kennedy fans erupted in applause, and that made news in the day, and people were just shocked and ashamed and all that kind of thing. Well, here we are all these decades later, and I think that we have an emphatically much more version of that with the attack on Charlie. It is shameful, but I frankly don't know how this is going to be dealt with over time, because I think it's here to stay for a while.
Yeah, as long as Trump is in office, as long as Trump is still when Trump finally dies, I mean, the man's going to be 80. When he goes, they will erupt in cheers. They are going to be so happy, and we're going to watch them dance for death again. And I would just love to see how their lives turn out like 20 years down the road, because I think they're just going to be miserable, lonely. They already are miserable, lonely people, but I think I don't think they're going to be happy.
Well, I think there is a problem with this for sure, and we will see more of it. And it will, I think, over time eventually fade away, but we're a long ways from that, sad to say.
Susan said, I didn't know Charlie's kids were there that day. I heard today and I cried again. Yeah, I think you're going to cry for a while. They try to, they keep trying to justify it. And I had given the example of, they're like, well, the right's violent too. What about the insurrection? You guys attacked the Capitol. And I was like, that was like the worst insurrection ever. Like, if that was really an insurrection, that was the saddest little insurrection ever. Because nobody came armed. Some people went in and prayed. And as Gregory said, the insurrection between the velvet ropes. There's the video of the people just going in, staying on between the velvet ropes on the little carpet, looking around Statuary Hall and leaving. And all those people were charged with crimes.
Right. I mean, that was shameful. I have to tell you, I was at January 6th, not in the Capitol. I was down on the ellipse behind the White House.
Sure.
And,
sure.
And had a front row seat there when President Trump came out, and I heard him quite unmistakably say to go peacefully and to protest peacefully and patriotically. That was it. There was no encouraging of violence or anything. That just wasn't true. And when it was all over, I mean, there were thousands and thousands, having worked in Washington for a long time. I was truly amazed at the number of people there. So when it was over, I trudged back to my hotel and decided I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving my hotel room here for the rest of the day. And I think that was a good decision in retrospect.
Yes, it was. Rob Dog over on Rumble said, Lisa Renee, this will be a rough few days forever. And that's going to be rough. Dolly says, I'm watching all of this and wondering if it will last. Is it a revival? There's always something else that comes along to distract us. And she's right. That's what I fear. I fear the distraction that comes along to take the focus off of Charlie Kirk. All of those kids, so many videos of adults and teenagers who are like, I haven't been to church in years, I'm going to church, like that's the Charlie effect. So they can't wait to just stop it and get another distraction. What do you think?
One of the problems we have that we didn't have in 1963 is the technology. In 1963, if you wanted to find out what was going on, you turned on CBS with Walter Cronkite or NBC with Huntley and Brinkley, or ABC, which was very new in the day. And that was it. In today's age, I don't have to tell you. All you have to do is flick a button and you're watching social media and some this, that, or the other thing that's all over the place. That is a whole different problem of a different magnitude. And there's nothing you can do about it. The technology is here to stay. Social media is here to stay. But, people are going to be jumping on YouTube and they're going to be jumping on other sites to find out what's going on. And that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Bill, I was a big fan of Charlie's. I'm in shock still. I worry about what's next. I pray nobody gets hurt or killed.
Amen.
Street Preacher, I feel Charlie like Jesus' sacrifice in verse. No greater love can you have than to lay down your life for a friend. That's what makes America great, and we live by that. Rebecca, most of the liberals execute all the gun violence in our country, but want to take them away from law-abiding citizens. That is the game.
Yes.
It's the game. You know what it is? I think it's interesting, and then I'll get to Porchview Farm here. I felt like they weren't successful in taking away our Second Amendment rights. And that's what protects our First Amendment rights. Right. So what they're going to do is they're going to do everything they can to make you afraid of exercising your First Amendment rights. That to me is what the game is now.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. Fear plays no small role in all of this. They try and intimidate the political opposition. And, this is a technique that's been around forever and a day. I mean, there's nothing really new about it. It's just that how they do it on social media and all of that kind of thing, that's what's new. The technology is new, but trying to intimidate people in the political opposition so that they don't speak up or they're afraid to speak up, that kind of thing has been around, and that's not going away at all.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of liberals who are learning about cancel culture. They cheered when they were canceling the right. And now all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, what about free speech? I'm like, wait, I'm old enough to remember when you told me you can have free speech, but it has consequences. So now all of a sudden they don't want the consequences. I'm like, you're the ones who told us that. But now all of a sudden they're not so happy that they're getting canceled. So
that is right.
Yeah. Porchview Farm says, I cried watching that kid sitting there being charged. He has torn so much apart that we love. Here we go. Porchview Farm, Jeffrey Lord's in the house. Rebecca, how amazing it must have been for Jeffrey that he got to work with Reagan. I miss Reagan in the 80s.
I have to say, it was absolutely amazing. I was one of the White House political directors, and he was such a wonderful person to work for. And I'll tell you, I'll give you a Reagan story. I brought my parents in to meet him. And so we go into the Oval Office, and he sort of does the thing, that a good boss does. That basically, it's just him and me winning the Cold War, right? My father and mother are just beaming and all of this kind of thing. And then he says, well, let's do a family picture. So we get together, he does one with mom, one with dad, and then one with me, and then one with all of us together. And then when we're done, I thank him, and my parents go out of the Oval Office first, and I turned around and said, "Thank you, Mr. President." And he says, "Did I do all right?" Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You did. You did great. So, but that was typical of him. He was a wonderful to work for, but it was also, you knew it was momentous. I mean, I was there when Mikhail Gorbachev came to the White House, and I got to tell you, as somebody who grew up in the Cold War, that was so astonishing to see this ZIL, ZIL. That's the name of like the Russian equivalent of a Lincoln Continental, and it comes up with all this motorcycle protection from the U.S. Secret Service and Capitol Police. They pull into this driveway in the South Lawn, and close up, I can see him get out. I can see the, that red scar, or whatever it is, on his head, and the Secret Service agents are all surrounding him, and he goes over and shakes hands with Reagan, and they go up on a stage and have a little public presentation, and then Reagan escorts him into the Oval Office. It was, and you realize this is serious history. I mean, as a kid, I remember the television coverage of President Kennedy going over to Vienna, and he meets with Nikita Khrushchev, who was the Russian leader in the day. And, you're getting all this through your grainy family black and white TV with Walter Cronkite doing the narrating. And this time around, wow, I was right there watching this. It was an amazing thing to see. And, at another occasion, I got to see Margaret Thatcher come, and the White House, no matter who is president of the United States, is sort of American history central, and all kinds of interesting people, friend and foe alike, come to the White House, and they get treated to all the sort of fancy things in state dinners and lunches and all of that kind of thing. And it's a pretty amazing thing to see. And at this point, after all of this time, a couple of 100 years, there are traditions that have been built up, so that if you work in the White House, the White House has a full-time staff that has nothing to do with the people who are there because of a certain administration of the moment. They are the permanent people who get the job done, who set up the state dining room for dinners and lunches, who make sure that the place is kept clean as a whistle, that this, that, or the other historic thing is moved around. And wow, it's quite the enterprise all on its own. And when you realize the history there, there's an elevator there, and they said that when Franklin Roosevelt was president, this was one of the reasons why the elevator was put in there, was because, of course, he was crippled, and he couldn't take the stairs between the basement and the first floor, and yet again from the first floor up to the private quarters. So they had an elevator put in so that he would wheel his wheelchair in there, and then they would take him up and down in the wheelchair. Well, interesting history there, for sure.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
it is a fascinating place. If anybody out there in your audience has the chance to work there, say yes and go do it.
I would do it in a heartbeat. I so would. Rob Dog says the left will help us keep Charlie Kirk front and center, and people care about this, especially younger folks.
Yeah.
Street Preacher says Brett Baer had Fetterman on and did a softball session, not pressing him on the left's responsibility. Charlie was the best politician, a citizen, statesman. Sal, Charlie seemed to be more effective in drawing in the younger generation than the left, hence he was assassinated. He was becoming too much competition. Rob Dog, on the Nunn report, he showed a 14-year-old kid, Bryson, that might be the next Charlie Kirk. There's a couple of them. There's also Brylan Hollyhand. Have you met him yet?
No, but I now know who he is, and I thought, wow, what an interesting young guy, and I think we'll be hearing more of him as we go down the road.
Yeah, I had never heard of him, and I got to about a year ago, maybe not even a year ago, one of the shows that I was working on booked him as a guest. I'm like, what the hell kind of? And his dad's name's Brian, his mother's name, I think it comes from Brian and Lynn, like that's where his name Brylan comes from. And with the last name like Hollyhand, I mean, what are you going to name your kid, right? So So really smart though. And now I'm starting to see him everywhere. So I've had the chance to interview him a couple times. He's going to be going places. And I told him that. Star Driver checking in from Barstow, California. Let's see, Street, for a future presidential candidate. Griffin Lady's here. Jen La is here over on Rumble. Thank you so much. Hello, Mary and Mr. Lord. Hope you're doing well. Ilhan Omar needs to be deported. Myron over on Rumble. Yeah, we're getting lots over on Rumble. Thank you. I think the rest of the world are trying to force the USA into their Digital Safety Act. They'll have us begging for censorship. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you know, I think this is the new world with all of the digital stuff out there. And I do think that we're going to be opening arguments that were once settled because, you know, the best people could do was book banning. And, you know, every once in a while you still see that the left tries to make this a big thing. Really, all it is that if some parent discovers a sort of obscene book in the children's section of the library, they want to get that moved out and all that kind of thing. That's about it. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts, and they used to have a saying, "Banned in Boston," because Boston was so prim and proper and all of those kind of thing in the day. That's long gone. But I do think one of the problems we're going to have is with the technology. And you've got all kinds of ways that people can get access to all kinds of things that are not so good. And I frankly, it's above my pay grade as to how we're going to deal with that.
Yeah. Myron says the First Amendment is our primo amendment. If no free speech, the rest of the Constitution will topple. And that's why it's number one, I think. Yeah. What was the name of that book, please? Oh, White Liberal Black Redneck by Thomas Sowell, right? Thomas
Sowell. Yeah, just Google Thomas Sowell, and I'm sure there's a list of his books there, and you'll find it.
Yeah. I'm going to quickly go through some of these, so I'm not reading everybody. Sorry, but we have a lot, which is great. You're getting so many comments, Jeffrey. Rob Dog says, without the Second Amendment, there's no guarantee of the rest of the amendments. Let's see, no free speech. I'm just trying to get to some of these. When the government fears the people, you have freedom. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Because I want to get through this because I do want to get a little bit to Israel to talk about that, because I have my favorite picture of me and Jeffrey that I'm going to share. You know the picture I'm talking about.
I think I do.
I sent it to you. It wasn't that long ago when conservatives scoffed at lefties' words are violence. Assassinations and murder took place in the communist revolutions. Yes, they did. There have been 6 incidents at the Capitol that shut down the Capitol since January 6th, and not one person was charged. If they were cuffed, they were walked off the grounds and released. It's true. We've seen them. We've seen that happen. I want to get back into going into church, but I can't sit in the pews because of my back. Well, then ask them if you could have a chair, or just bring a chair. Like, we have people come in like wheelchairs, or a chair that they, like they push and then they sit down on it. You can do that. I don't think that's a reason to not go to church.
Persuade your church to have a camera in there, a TV camera in there, and then you can link and beam in.
Yeah, that's a great idea too. Charlie's death took the focus off the Charlotte murder of the immigrant that the left isn't falling all over themselves for. Although I will say, can I just go back to Rob Dog real quick? Going into the church, though, I think is an aspect. I think that's the best way to experience it. I think you experience in something there, but if you can't, then the second best way is to watch it. But bring a pillow for you to sit on, but I think, or bring a comfortable chair and just put it on the side and sit. I don't know. That's just me. It's easier to install communism when we're unarmed. Yes. Rob Dog, gotta go. It's my bedtime, Mary. All right, Rob, thank you so much. Griffin Lady, hello, Mary, Mr. Lord. I hope you're doing well, Mr. Lord. Myron can go online to watch, but needs to go to the church. Yeah, I agree. All right. So, no offense, but I'm going to go past some of these comments. No offense to anybody. Just want to take this one out of here because I want to talk a little bit about Israel, because that's where you and we had spoken on the radio a couple of times, but we had never met. And so I want to lighten it up just a little bit. Not that talking about Israel is going to lighten things up a little bit, but I do want to I want to share this with everybody, because I was so excited when I heard you were on the trip. There were so many people that I had known, but I had never gotten to meet in person. So this is the very last night of our trip. So where is it? Here it is. So this is the very, nope. Where is it? Window. There we go. This is the very last night of our trip. There we are. Look at us, Jeffrey. We were so tired. We were so exhausted. They ran us into the ground.
We're probably the only two people on earth that go to Israel for a party.
Yes. This was the night of the 4th of July party that Newsmax has been having in Israel for the last couple of years. First time had you been invited before?
No, this was a first for me.
Yeah, me too. And so I didn't know what kind of party the 4th of July party was. I was a little underdressed. I had like white pants with red. I had a red and blue top because it was a 4th of July party that had been rescheduled from 4th of July to August. So I came down to the bar because I was so tired, and I had on my Trump leggings with my top, these full ankle waist Trump leggings, and there's Jeffrey still with his jacket on.
Yeah, what can I say?
Impeccably dressed.
You don't think that New England Puritan streak is still there, do you?
I'm not going to tell any tales. But
Well,
we were so tired, and that thing went because who was it? Cheryl Chumley's flight was at 2 a.m. I think. So like they came and picked her up at what, midnight or so, probably earlier than that, whatever. But she was out in the lobby at like midnight, and we're all going to bed finally 1 o'clock. They kicked us out of the bar. They literally said, "We're closing because we have to go to sleep. You people are out," and we closed the bar. So
oh my goodness.
it
was an amazing trip. I mean, on two scores. One, just being there and doing the walking around tours and seeing things. And as I've said to any number of people, if you're an American, you think the Pilgrims coming here in 1620 is ancient history. And you walk over there and, 2,000-3,000 years old, you go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and they say, this is where Christ was crucified. And this is where they put his body to prepare it for burial and all this. I mean, it just gives you chills. And then you're walking on the streets and they said the streets were paved by the Romans. Wow. And then the other part was the political and governmental thing. And we got to hear directly from Prime Minister Netanyahu. And we had a reception at the, I guess it was the president's house.
They call it a palace, presidential palace. It's very modern.
Yeah.
It's very modern.
And for those in our audience that are not aware, Israel has one of those parliamentary systems where the prime minister is the head of government and the head of the state ceremonies and all that is the president. And in our country, we roll all of that together in the president of the United States, who does both. But over there, it was very interesting to see, and you got to talk to a lot of these people and listen, which I found fascinating. And then, of course, the thing that certainly made a visual impression on me, you'd walk through Jerusalem in the day or night, for that matter, and every other block or so, there would be an Israeli Defense Forces soldier in green uniform with a machine gun slung over their shoulder. And, the other night I was at a political event here in the middle of Pennsylvania, and I spoke. And I said, you have no idea what we take for granted here. Here is a political gathering in the middle of peaceful Pennsylvania, and everybody's sitting around talking, and we're talking about issues of the day, et cetera. And over there, we're looking at people who are walking around with machine guns on them just in case there's a problem. And the two of the sites that I'm sure made an impression on you, the one was the soccer field where these little kids were playing soccer, and a short distance away was the border with Lebanon, and there was a hill there, and they said that back in, 2024, 23, whenever it was, Hezbollah had set up and set rockets onto the soccer field where these little kids are playing soccer and killed 12 of them. And then the other one was the Nova music concert.
Festival.
And they had about 4,000 people there. And suddenly they were swarmed by Hamas with guns and rockets and all this, and killed 400 people. So, you know, our blessings are considerable wherever we are in America here.
Yeah, I actually did not go up to Syria, to the Syrian border, the Lebanon border. I did not do that. I stayed back and did a hit on Newsmax with Carl Higbie because it was so insanely hot that day. So I chose not to go. But I want to say the Nova Music Festival, what people need to understand, and this is because I'm hearing so many people with what's going on in Gaza right now, that Israel, this was Israel's 9/11. What happened on October 7th was Israel's 9/11, and proportionate to, because it's a small country, it's like the size of New Jersey. If you want to expand what happened in Israel to the United States, population-wise and percentage of the population, they estimate it's about a little bit over 40,000 people killed it would be in the United States if you wanted to do proportionally. So what would our response be if we had, like, say, the Sinaloa cartel, because Hamas is a terrorist organization that thrives in Gaza. And we had, like, say, one of the cartels got together in Mexico. Mexico's harboring them and knows that this is happening. And they just decide to come into our country one day and slaughter 40,000 Americans and take a couple hundred hostage. What do you think our response would be? We would wipe them out.
Yeah.
So why is it wrong for Israel to do it? I don't understand. And, you know, Hamas has had the opportunity to give back the hostages, and they refuse to do it because they win the PR war, because people in this country and in central Pennsylvania, as you said, in our peaceful little safe enclaves, sit there and go, well, it's kind of a genocide. You're wiping them out. And what about the starving children? And they go on and on. I'm like, do you think that the Brits or the United States fed any of the Germans when we were bombing the hell out of them during World War II? No, we didn't. Right? We did the airdrop to the people in Berlin. But
right. But that was after the war.
Right. Thank you. So, Israel, now that the bombing started when we were, remember, at the Nova Music Festival, we were half mile from the border, and all of a sudden you just hear the bombs dropping. You're like, holy crap, that's loud and close. And this is how they live all the time. And Israel, something in them snapped on October 7th, and I can't blame them. Again, what if it was 40,000 people coming across our southern border and killing 40,000 Americans? We would snap too. And they've realized that Hamas cannot be dealt with. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be dealt with. You have to eradicate them. That's the only way you're going to get rid of them.
I wrote something afterwards, and I compared listening to Prime Minister Netanyahu when President Reagan was president-elect, I believe this occurred. And Dick Allen, who was his first national security advisor, was talking to him about how to deal with the Russians and the Soviet Union. And this is in the middle of the Cold War. And he says to him, Mr. President, what's your view of our strategy on this? To which President Reagan, totally in character, said, we win, they lose.
That's right.
And you listen to Bibi Netanyahu, and in essence, that's what he is saying. And sometimes he's more or less said exactly that, I think.
The speech he gave us when we got to hear him, when we got to be with him, was a great speech. And they aired it on Newsmax. They should re-air that. That was such a great speech that he gave. And people have to understand that Israel, they were willing to say, okay, give us the hostages back. Imagine if they came over and killed 40,000 Americans, and we say, okay, we'll stop bombing you. We'll call it quits. Just give us our hostages back. First of all, we would never do that. Number one, I don't think we would. And number two, I think we would just wipe them out if they said no. And now I heard today on Fox, it was on Fox today, that maybe it was Newsmax, I don't know, but one of them, where they said that apparently they were taking the hostages out from the tunnels, the remaining hostages, and they're putting them on the front lines to prevent Israel from advancing further in Gaza.
Yeah. I mean, they're using these people. I mean, no surprise. I mean, this is the deal here. From their perspective, they are at war. and their ultimate objective is to eradicate Israel from the face of the earth and kill every last Jewish person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what they are about. So they are willing to do anything and everything that they can that furthers that. And if that means they move ahead 10 moves, they'll do it. If it means they inch ahead one move, they'll do that. But whatever it is, it's always forward. And therein lies the problem that Israel has to face.
Yeah, it's just sad. And, you know, I was having a conversation with a friend, and I'll just end it here. I had a conversation with a friend today, and we were talking about, you know, Charlie Kirk, and everybody's so sad. And she, in town here, there's someone who I'm not friends with, and that I, believe it or not, it's town's 2 square miles, 1 square mile of land and 1 square mile of water. That's what we got. So, we've got like 3,500, like fewer than 3,500 people. So we don't know everybody. And she was saying to me, she goes, I don't know what to do. He's having his birthday party, but you have to pay to go, and it's $1,900 a couple.
Wow.
But it benefits the IDF.
Oh.
And she goes, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I started talking to her. I'm like, well, what? She goes, I don't know if I want to donate to the IDF. I go, why? And we started talking. And I said, well, you know, they said if they get back the hostages, yeah, you're right. And, you know, I said, well, and I just went through the whole thing. Like, why doesn't if the Palestinians are starving and this is such a genocide, why won't any of the Muslim countries take them in? Why? She goes, I don't know. That's a really good question. Like, so all you have to do is ask the questions to make people think. And she's like, well, great. She goes, great. Now I have to go tell my husband we have to donate to the IDF, right?
Well, you know, I will say this. I think in the Islamic world, I think you've got two kinds of folks. You've got those who just want to live in peace and all of that kind of thing, and then you've got the Islamic radicals, and I think
Islamists.
The Islamists, and I think that the people who live in peace know that if they were ever to be in charge, they themselves would be having problems. And I think that's just sort of the way this goes here.
Yeah, well, the last thing I'll say about it is, you know, I just think that people really need to read your history. I know history's dry, but the history of Israel only goes back like a generation. Okay. You know, the actual country, the way it is now. Yes. But, you know, learning what's gone back and forth and how they pulled their people back from the West Bank in order to give it to the Palestinians, and they left them the farms and they left them the equipment, and there was going to be this whole process of handing it over so that they would have the greenhouses and they could feed their people, and they destroyed it all. They just destroyed it all.
Well, so, I can recommend a book on this that I have been reading.
Yes.
It's called Israel, and it is written. It's a huge book, you know, like the size of a Bible or more, and it is written by Sir Martin Gilbert. And Sir Martin Gilbert, for those who may not know, is a British historian. He is perhaps best known for his writings and biographies of Winston Churchill over the decades. But he took the time to, he was a favorite of, he favored Israel, and he took the time to write this. It's a huge book. You're not going to get through it in a week or two, but it is worth it. And as I say, it's just called Israel. And I think it's well worth it. I mean, I am just fascinated by it because he really knows his stuff.
All right. My pen's not working, but I'll, you know what, text me the name of it and I can put it in the in the description when I post this. Okay.
Okay.
All right. And we didn't get to any other news. Which is fine. That's fine. This is more fun. And I really wanted to talk about Israel because of how we finally met in person. Right. And I just love that picture. You just having it a headlock. It was such a great trip. It was, I have to say that trip was fun, but it was so eye-opening all at the same time, you know, and so important. And I don't know, I just thought it was a great, just such a great trip. And I feel like I've learned so much, and I just feel a need to share it And
Yes.
so when I get someone from the trip on, like Charles or Cheryl or you or whomever, Tony, I feel a need to discuss it because it's still going on. It's a topic that's not going to stop. It's a topic that's not going to be old. And I think we have a unique ability to share a very unique take on what's going on in Israel. So thank you for sharing that with me. I do appreciate it.
You bet. Well, I think it's just incredibly important. I am a real bug that people don't know enough history. And when it comes to dealing with Israel, you and I are aware, as are all kinds of other people, this has been going on for our entire life. And, so the question is, what next? I mean, I remember being in high school when the 1967 war took place. And then before we were around, it was the formation of Israel in 1948 or something of that nature.
47, I think. Yeah.
Very big deal and very important. And I mean, to be perfectly blunt, the world spins on a lot of this, and it's not going to go away. So paying attention to it and helping our friends, the Israelis, and knowing what's going on and having an understanding of it, I think is very, very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And I'll say one last thing.
Yes.
All of this about doing in Israel, make no mistake, the people who are doing this want to do in America. We're on the list.
That's a great point. And you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, you are such a fool if you think that there are not operatives in this country that came across that southern border that Joe Biden allowed in, that are living among us, that would take you out in a heartbeat. I told the story about the kibbutz, Nur Oz, that had the people from Gaza that they were letting in to let them work because they would make more money and they'd be able to feed their families and then have a better life when they go back to Gaza. And what happened?
Yeah.
So they don't think that those people sold them out. They're like, well, they came to work that day. It's like, but were they killed? And how did the people who came across the border, how did those Hamas members, and by the way, it was not just Hamas, for the record, going back to the Nova Music Festival, remember what they told us? That went on for hours and hours because they radioed back that everything was wide open, nobody was being watched, and anyone who wanted to come kill a Jew should just come over. So it was not just Hamas fighters.
To think that there are people like that in this world is very disturbing, but sad to say there are, and we need to be making sure that we're paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Jeff, we've run 2 minutes over. I'm going to have to take it out of your pay.
All right.
Thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I really appreciate you.
Anytime.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, Mary.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a good night. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I will be in for Stacey Washington on Thursday night on SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125 from 9 p.m. to midnight. Yeah, going to be a late night. And then on Friday, I'm always on the Rob Carson radio show at 1:35 Eastern. So I'll be on his show. I think Tony Kinnett is on 12:35, and then me, and then Christian Toto, or Christian Toto, me, then Tony, whatever. But Tony Kinnett will be on there as well. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And thank you. I'll see you again on Tuesday. Have a great